Here are the 10 people you won't believe exist. If you've ever read the Spider-Man comics, you probably know the supervillain and Peter Parker's sworn enemy, Dr. Octopus. This mad scientist had managed to have metal appendages grafted to his back in the form of tentacles, which gave him superhuman strength and a terrifying appearance. But unlike this evil character who only exists in the imagination of the writers, Dr. Octopus is a real person who actually exists in real life, and his physical particularity is even more spectacular than that of Dr. Octopus. The latter, whose real name is Rudy Santos, is a Filipino suffering from a very rare disease known as parasitic twin. He was born with an extra leg and 2 arms, including shoulders, and an extra pair of nipples, all attached to his pelvis and protruding very visibly from his abdomen. But the most surprising thing in all this mix of extra limbs is the tiny little atrophied head attached to its sternum, and in which one can easily discern a nascent ear and a tuft of hair. The Filipino grew up with this incredible congenital malformation and even made a living out of it, appearing in freak shows in the 1970s and 1980s before finally sinking into the darkest misery. Rudy Santos was nevertheless approached in 2008 by a surgeon specialized in the separation of Siamese twins, who offered to operate him, but the latter refused this generous offer on the grounds that he had greatly accustomed to his extra limbs, and that he could not therefore separate himself from them now. Sahana Khatun is a young girl born in Bangladesh, who is quite normal until she reached the age of 10. Shortly after blowing out her 10th candle, she noticed a few unsightly spots on her face and ears. At first, the girl and her family thought it was just an acne rash, but the color and size of the pimples, which were growing almost visibly, persuaded them to go see a skin doctor. After performing a few standard tests, the girl was diagnosed with epidermaloplasia verruciformis, a very rare condition with a barbaric name, but which you probably know as tree man syndrome. This terrible genetic disease causes as symptoms the appearance of huge warty lesions on the face and trunk, but also on the arms and forearms. These grayish excrescences take on the appearance of the bark of a tree, hence the name of this dreadful pathology. Until now, only 4 people in the world have been diagnosed with this disease, and all of them were men. This makes Sahana Khatun the first female to contract the disease, thus becoming the first female tree on the planet. The name Marmar Kiroa may not ring a bell, but this 22-year-old is an influencer who has already reached the top of the fame. Her beauty and fashion tutorials on her YouTube channel are followed by thousands of fans, and her account on the streaming platform is already close to 600,000 subscribers. However, it was not one for this young adept of makeup sessions and pedicures, because Marmar Kiroa is suffering from a cystic hygroma, a kind of tumor that completely deforms the face. The young woman native of California had to undergo several surgical operations because of this disease, and the size of her cranium was thus largely reduced. Because of these serious deformations, Marmar Kiroa cannot speak, nor even breathe or eat normally. The poor 22-year-old woman has to breathe through a hole in her throat, and her food is delivered directly into her stomach through a tube. Now you understand how incredible the success of this young woman is, because despite the unbearable ordeal she endures on a daily basis, she still remains as pretty as ever, and even shares her beauty tips with the other girls. The story of little Tilly Lucky is worthy of a Steven Spielberg movie, and you'll soon see why. This cute little British teenager was born in 2005, bringing joy and happiness to her family. But when she was just 15 months old, she contracted meningococcal septicemia, which was life-threatening and threatened to kill her. The young girl was eventually saved from death, but she was left with severe after-effects of her terrible infection. The medical team had to amputate her 2 arms and almost all of her toes, which had become necrotic. Little Tilly Lucky grew up with a serious handicap, since she had only simple prostheses that were unusable as hands, and therefore could not use them. But one day, Tilly's family noticed an advertisement on the internet that was likely to be of great interest to them. It was about a company called Open Bionics, which was developing bionic arms printed with 3D technology. As luck would have it, the company was looking for an arm amputee to test one of their latest prototypes at the cutting edge of technology. The young girl will receive bionic prostheses equipped with prehensile hands. The young girl, who could not even play with dolls, is now able to manipulate all these toys, and she's even able to hold the joystick and play the console with her friends and family. Known worldwide as the Elephant Man, Joseph Carey Merrick was a young British man who had extreme deformities on his body. Born in England in 1862 during the Victorian era, Merrick had a very sad existence because of his handicap and had to undergo a real ordeal throughout his short life. It was at the age of 21 months that the first deformities appeared on Merrick's body, and it only got worse with time. When he was 11 years old, his mother died tragically, and his stepmother decided to kick him out of the house because she did not want a child like that in her house. In 1884, the deformed young man accepted to play as a fairground phenomenon in a theater, where he took the name of the Elephant Man. They invented a sordid story to justify his appearance, which would be due to an accident that happened to his mother while she was still pregnant with him. This last would indeed have missed to be trampled by an elephant during a parade of the Wombwell Menagerie, which had taken place in the streets of Leicester. In reality, the poor man was suffering from Proteus syndrome, a genetic disease that affects the growth of tissues and causes severe deformities of the human body. His physical condition deteriorated with time, and he finally died in 1890 at the age of 27 from suffocation. His overly large head had tilted back and compressed his windpipe, preventing him from breathing. The sequence that you are about to see now may well electrify you completely, because one thing is certain, you would never have believed in the existence of such a phenomenon. Deepak Yangra is indeed a young Indian teenager who has an incredible peculiarity. He is totally insensitive to electric shocks. The young man can thus support electric tensions which could kill you on the spot, but which do not make him more effective than a tickle. Deepak can indeed withstand a voltage of 11,000 volts, which is more than enough to supply electricity to more than 500 houses. His strange power also allows him to put his hands in a basin filled with water and to manipulate live wires naked without feeling any electric shock. Deepak even went so far as to hold on to a high-voltage wire with his bare hands without suffering any injury, no matter how small. Anyone else would have ended up completely burnt, but not this little Indian superhero who remains completely unaffected by the current as if he were made of rubber. The young boy takes advantage of his surprising power to help the population of his village, tinkering with their electrical installations or repairing the breakdowns of their electronic devices for free. This little electronic technician works with his bare hands, without cutting pliers or insulated screwdrivers, relying on his dexterous and naturally protected fingers. Many of these so-called rappers that we hear over and over again on the radio should take a leaf out of the book of young Isaiah Acosta and his incredible journey. This young boy from Phoenix, USA, was born with a situs transversus, a congenital anomaly in which the main organs are inverted in a mirror-like position compared to the original position. Isaiah Acosta was therefore born with a severe physical deformity, characterized by the almost total absence of jaws. He could not feed himself without medical help, and he could never claim to be able to speak, since he had no mouth, no tongue, and even less vocal cords. An extremely difficult condition, especially for this young boy who dreamed of becoming a rapper and recording his own songs. Acosta's dream finally came true, thanks to a partnership with a recording studio where he wrote the lyrics and chose the rhythms and music. So even though he can't express himself about his condition, his deep and very sad rap lyrics have become audible to millions of Americans. Cosmetic surgery enthusiasts who spend thousands of dollars on operations to remove their wrinkles should take a leaf out of Sarah Gurt's book. This young woman from Minnesota is in fact a 26-year-old model, although the rather flabby aspect of her skin gives her the appearance of an old woman of more than 70 years. The poor supermodel is indeed affected since her childhood by a very rare skin condition called dermatosparaxis, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. This mysterious pathology of the connective tissue inhibits the capacity of the body to produce collagen, which makes the epidermis all flaccid and completely wrinkled. As a result, Sarah Gurt lived her childhood with the appearance of an old woman, which caused her many problems of bullying and insecurity. Now living in Los Angeles, the young woman unabashedly flaunts her saggy body to raise awareness and help others like her. Zion Clark is a 24-year-old American athlete who is world famous for overcoming a rare and usually fatal disease called caudal regression syndrome. This terrible congenital condition affects the lower part of the body, causing the legs and buttocks of the fetus to regress until they disappear. Zion was born this way because his mother abused hard drugs during her pregnancy, but the young man did not resign himself to death and was able to grow up to become a world-class athlete. The young man is even listed in the Guinness Book of Records for having managed to break the difficult record of the fastest two-handed man for the 20-meter sprint. Here is probably the most imposing and strongest woman on the planet, who should not be messed with. Lindsay Hayward, better known under her stage name of Isis the Amazon, is indeed a professional wrestler of more than 2 meters high, able to lift any man as if he was a vulgar straw, and to throw him across the room. This giant Amazon warrior is not a girl who lets herself be done easily. And beware if you ever get her angry, because you might end up in the emergency room, or worse, in the morgue. And as always, on your favorite YouTube channel, we have saved the best for last, with the sequence that will certainly make you see double. Here are the fabulous brothers Shivanath and Shivram Sahu, two Siamese twins of 12 years old, who share the same body with two heads. They are indeed linked by the lower abdomen and share the same stomach, but they nevertheless have independent and separate lungs, hearts, and brains. In spite of their heavy handicap, these incredible children manage to live almost normally and even play cricket with their fellow villagers. Now, tell us in the comments what you think about these 11 people you never thought existed, and tell us which one of them impressed you the most. Don't forget to subscribe and click here to watch another of our videos.